Welcome to this week's Real Estate Investing Deal Breakdown, aka the REI Deal Breakdown. If you're not familiar with me, my name is Greg Helbeck. I've been a full-time real estate investor now for over 8 years. I've done almost 200 deals, and today I'm going to talk about 102 Brandy Road in Wappinger Falls, New York. I think it's like the town of East Fishkill. So I'm going to tell you how did I get the deal, how did the deal unfold, and what are some lessons that I learned. So the first thing is I found the deal through direct mail. I believe it was a pre-probate or a probate list. So the seller called in, they inherited their property. So it was in a trust, I believe. And anyway, so the seller wanted to sell off market. $260,000 was the price we agreed on. I ended up finding a buyer for $37,000 assignment fee. So I believe that $297, I believe was the price I sold it for. So it was a $37K assignment fee to my good friend Dave Brown. Now I sold this property sight unseen. And how did I do that? The first way that I was able to do that is I put the deal out to my list and I had a lot of people interested. So when you have a lot of people interested in your deal, you have a lot of leverage as a seller because you have a lot more demand than supply. So you're able to negotiate from a place of power. So because I had so much interest, I told Dave, the buyer, who was a good friend of mine, I said, listen, if you want this property, I'll give you $3K off if you're willing to take it without having to get access. Because getting access is always a pain in the ass, even if you have a vacant house, if the seller doesn't put a lockbox on there. So ended up having Dave agree to that. And he was like, yeah, I'll take it. He saw the pictures. He's like, I'll take it for, $297. So I double closed, which means that I actually signed another contract with Dave. So there was two contracts, one with me and the seller and the other one with me and Dave. So today, when it closed, I actually had Dave send all the money over to the attorney, and the attorney used Dave's money, right, of $297 to pay the $260 that I owed the seller. And obviously the difference between the $260 and the $297 ended up coming to me. It was around $37,000 profit. There were some closing costs in there, the attorney fee and some transfer tax, but all in all, fairly good wholesale deal. I would say that's, a little bit higher than the normal. I think the average New York wholesale deal is in between 25 and 32 grand. So this one was 37. So that was great. So what are some lessons that I learned from this property? Number one, when you have a good sales process, you're able to identify who's motivated, who's not motivated. This seller actually might not have seemed like a motivated seller because he's pretty sophisticated, but he had a really good price and he didn't really want to list that house for whatever reason he had. I think he thinks it needed more work than it actually did, but it is what it is. So you don't need desperate people. A lot of people think you're going to get desperate people in foreclosure. And I'll tell you what, those are like the worst people to work with because they really can't help themselves. So the people who are aware that they're taking a discount and you want to sell for convenience sake are usually the best sellers you can work with. So don't look for distress, just look for a good deal. Look for a seller who's willing to sell their house at a discount and hopefully they're not distressed, which is never good. And it just makes the deal go by easier. The seller was very compliant and there was not a lot of objections with the sale on the front end. And then in terms of the actual process to get it closed, there was a little hiccup. This town that the property is in, it's called the town of East Fishkill. It's in Dutchess County, New York. It's in the Hudson Valley near New York City. And the town required a water test. So you had to get a water test done to get the quality of the water for the town so they could see if it was safe or not. So I had to pay like $700 for that water test. And in theory, I could have had the buyer do that. But if you're a wholesaler and you really want to add a lot of value, try to make the experience for the buyers as frictionless as possible. So I was able to deal with that myself, pay the fee, got the water tested, got everything done. And I didn't have to have the buyer worry about that. So make sure you stand out and really treat your buyers with good customer service as well as your sellers, because it makes them want to keep coming back to you for more. So I've sold, 10 plus properties to Dave over the years. So he knows I'm a good seller. I do what I say I'm going to do, and he's a great buyer. So we have a great, trust-built relationship between us from a business standpoint. So that's the second lesson. And the third lesson is this deal, I believe, was pretty easy to get off the bat. Like we didn't have to follow up with the seller that long. He called off the mailer and we were able to get that property in contract fairly quickly. So sometimes you got to follow up. Most of the times you actually got to follow up. But in this case, we actually got the deal pretty early. So sometimes you're going to get leads coming in where they're ready to go right now. And that just makes the process easier. So hopefully you got value from this. If you did, please leave a review on the podcast app if you're listening to the audio, or if you're doing the YouTube channel. If you could subscribe to my channel, like the video, it would really mean a lot to me. And if you're in the Hudson Valley or Reno or Delaware or San Diego and you have a house you want to sell me, if you're a wholesaler, email me, Greg@velocityhousebuyers.com, and I will see you on the next Real Estate Investing Deal Breakdown.